All right, we are live. All right, everyone, welcome back from lunch hour. It is just shortly after 1 p.m. and we are circling back to something from earlier this morning, which is 632, an act relating to miscellaneous environmental amendments. And that was a conversation we had yesterday about a couple of sections of the bill on emergency rulemaking. And we are going to take a position on this, a straw poll in support of just, or whether or not to support, I should say, those sections we went over yesterday. So before I ask for thumbs, just want to open the table for any more commentary or discussion. Seeing no hands, seeing no. Okay. So thumbs up is to support the relevant sections that we reviewed for this committee's jurisdiction. So thumbs in support. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And non-supportive thumbs. I have 4. And no absences. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And if you'll bear with me for one moment before we move to H 831, I need to communicate this. Thank you. Okay. All right. Up next, we are doing witness testimony on H 831, an act relating to requiring the Secretary of State to include the year of passage in the number assigned to acts of the General Assembly. And we have Tanya Marshall here from the State Archivist Office, State Archivist and Chief Records Office. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. For the record, I'm Tanya Marshall. I am the Director of the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration, part of the Secretary of State's office, and I'm the Chief Records Officer and State Archivist. I was here a couple weeks ago. I'm here to talk about acts and resolves. I did submit written testimony, so hopefully you had a chance to see that. It is done through our division, and this might be an easier bill than you think, because what I'll describe today is that that particular statute might be different than what you think for that. And feel free to ask questions. But the acts and resolves, that statute in 3 VSA 104, which is the printing and publishing, the scope of work that we do for that is printing this publication at the end of the biennium. And what comes inside of it is actually produced by General Council or General Assembly, meaning the Legislative Council. So we actually don't do the form or format of the actual acts that you see online. That is done through Legislative Council. And then if you're referring to this Vermont Statutes Annotated, the publisher of that is Legislative Council as well. So it's more just to clarify, because I'm happy to help understand where you were seeing it. So one of our jobs as the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration is know what functions people do and why they do them in the statutes. And when we listened to testimony last week, because we agree, everything that we write when we're doing just regular programming or standards, we always refer to it as, Act 171 of 2022, right? Because you always want that year. And I've been in state government since 2003, and it always me when I have to see the session at the back of the statutes and try to understand the amendments, because you're doing the math in your. So we're happy to help in any way, shape, or form. But what that statute is, we're legislative clerks that we do assign the act number, but it's really just providing it as acts are enacted. And then we provide that information to the governor's office. We do pick up the original paper file, the paper act is signed from the governor and put that right into the archives during this course of the session. And then we communicate though back to legislative council what the act number is. And so what you do see published online is the General Assembly's own form and format of the acts. I'm happy to pass around the book if you would like to see it. It definitely is one of our oldest Secretary of State functions. This one is from 2022, if there's interest. But it is at the end of the biennium, and it's kind of streamlined through contracting. Lexis is the publisher. We own the contract to that. The files do go directly from legislative council to the publisher after being approved during the session. So it is an older law, so it goes back to the archaic processes of paper and engrossing on big books. But that is the scope of that part of the section.
Okay.
Grab coffee.
There, yeah, since it's my bill, I'll ask the questions on it,
Sure.
or this question at least. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's how we, the legislature, present the bill to legislative council. And then when they write it, that's how you don't actually assign the act number.
We provide the act number, but the document that you see, so if you're on the legislature's website, for example, and you see an act and you see the enacted version, that's all within the General Assembly. That is your General Assembly record. So it is the legislature's record, in the form and format of that, how it's structured, how it's formatted, where the act number appears, where the year appears. That is all within the legislative council's own format for the General Assembly. Does that help explain that?
But when you have,
Right.
when you assign the number, you're the keeper of the numbers.
For the keeper of the number, and essentially because it's coming at different times off the governor's desk for that. So when it's enacted, we track a database. So one of our legislative clerk duties is to track, the numbering system for it. And we have a legislative clerk function within our office. But let's say whatever's signed by the governor today, the governor will contact our legislative clerk and said, I've signed this bill. The clerk will pick up the signed bill from the governor's office, because that's a paper-based record still. Bring it back into the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration, go to the next number on the list, and let's just say it's 100. And then tell legislative council 100 has been passed. This is the bill number for it.
Yeah.
What have you. Yep.
So the essence of the bill is, can you say this is number 100 of 2026?
That's what the essence.
Right. I know the essence of the bill is, but we don't write it down on your documents. And I think that's what I guess what the best explain it is that we're just communicating to legislative council. This bill has been filed. The record is really a digital record. We're taking care of the paper record earlier, but it's a digital record. So when you see what you see online is General Assembly's record, legislative council record. I'm not aware between all our communications with legislative council and the governor's office that there's a confusion related to the number.
Confusion that I've had is look at something and it says Act 72.
Yes.
It does. In fact,
Where
72 was before Act 70.
Right.
Something of
Where were you looking when you see that information? That's what we're trying to understand.
Okay, this is when it was brought to me by a constituent.
Yes.
Because they're trying to find an act.
Okay.
So they type in Act 100.
Okay. Like a
Like the Google search.
Yes.
But if they only know, they know when it was passed,
Right.
but they type in the act number.
Right.
Because this is what everybody's talking about.
Right.
Several different Act
Yes.
100s will show up. This
Yes.
would designate them as
Right.
Act 100, 2026.
Right. But what comes up in the Google search is the General Assembly's Act. The form that is all constructed by legislative council. We don't touch those files. We don't see, that's not where we write them. We don't engage with that actual digital file that's coming up in that search. This is the scope of it after the end of the session, is we get the files from the General Assembly. So we don't handle the actual act that people are searching. There's no online presence to the Secretary of State's publication. Our role is really at the end of the biennium, or whatever's available, is just this paper printed volume.
Mhm.
So my recommendation might be if someone's Googling, right? And I'm assuming they're gonna, when they find a search, they're touching the legislature's website, because that's where the information would come up. And the file that comes up is, it says legislative act. That is actually an instrument form that's created by legislative council. We don't engage with that record
So it
until
would
the
have to
end.
be Legislative council assigning the number.
Well, legislative council would be updating the document so it looks the way that you want it, so it comes up in a Google search. It might be helpful if we want to pull up an act or something on because our role, there's no public facing digital copy of it. Does that make sense? What we do is get the files in digital form after the biennium. The paper one, we do write it on the paper one, but no one's
Mhm.
going in the paper archives, right, to look for it. But when people are searching, I agree, but it is within the General Assembly's purview
Mhm.
to change the instrument, that form that is used.
Yes, so I think there are a couple of issues here. I don't think that it's actually your office that we should be asking to do
Yeah,
this.
That's what I was.
I believe it's legislative council that needs to be assigning the year to the bill. And then when the bill becomes enacted, it will have the year number. Because, for instance, if a constituent is reading a press release and the individual in the press conference refers to Act 73, the public doesn't know when Act 73 was passed. So if they Google Act 73, they might come up with a clean water bill as opposed to an education transformation
Yes.
bill.
Yeah.
And that has happened to me as a legislator.
Yes.
So I think we need to be speaking with Ledge Council, and then they would convey that to your office when you archive this.
Yeah, it's really the legislature's records. Our job is, secure the paper original, because we're still a paper-based signed signature state. And then the electronic files at the end of the biennium, we have two functions in the statute. It's in 106, 3 VSA 106. One is to print this volume, which is the files that come from legislative council. So we don't touch or change the format. And we don't do that for any records that come into the archives, right? So and then the other part is we do get the electronic files to bring into the digital archives, but it's a different portal. So when you have people searching, and I agree, we have the same thing happen to us, right? We search, you come up and you don't see it, but it is actually within the General Assembly's own record keeping. So to have that in the header, to have that structure of language to say Act 171 of 2022, so it comes up and it's clear on that particular PDF as it comes up, that is all within. I'm hoping that clarifies.
No, it absolutely did. No, it does. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So we just have to redirect the focus of our.
Yeah, and I think that would help the public very much, for that part of it. But it is the online presence of that is all within the General Assembly, and that is the General Assembly's own documents and structure.
Other than the fact that we would be up to Act 40,032, is there
Yeah.
a reason that you restart every year?
It's I can look up the history behind that. It started in 1825. There's been a lot of different restructuring of how even the statutes had to be done and thought about titles. That didn't happen until I think the 1950s or so. And there hadn't been a clear numbering system. So that goes back to at least 1825, but I'm happy to look up just the history of the sequential number. But for the most part, early on, even when I started for state government, we formalized having it say the act number and the year, and we rarely have people have confusion, but it's different when you're searching online. Yeah, but I'm happy to look that up and just send it to the committee to find, but it's been since 1825. You know, for the most part, the numbering sequence, sometimes very rare for bill numbers, has it gone over, you know, high, but bill numbers for the most part, acts, I should say, in any given biennium, are always, you know, not high numbers. And it is structurally easier to do for databases and other things of that nature. But it has been in place indeed.
I think you've pointed adequately to which don't need.
Yeah, so I think if you do a search and you find where it lands, but yeah, that instrument probably in the past, you know, was handwritten, but that was transcribing and then going to the typesetter for this type of book. But right now it is pretty consistent, and that's sitting within legislative council.
Okay. That's who we need to talk to next.
No, you definitely helped us.
I thought this might be the easiest bill you might have right now. Because I don't think you have statutory changes necessarily. But I know there was a reference to Vermont statutes annotated. I put inside the written testimony in the bottom, the publisher for that is Legislative Council. There is some more structure within that. But again, I still think that's well within the purview of the General Assembly. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Short term.
Yeah.
All right, team, we're a little bit ahead of schedule. We have guests at 1:30 coming in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Regional planning commissions to offer their insight on questions that surfaced yesterday from some folks at the table. But we got 10 minutes until their arrival, so I'm going to take us offline until 1:30, and we will speak to those individuals. Thank you. Bye.